Hello, Wargamers. It looks like we are working. It is a dark and stormy day, as you can see, here over at the Griggs household. I am hanging out today and just painting up some minis. I am going to be doing a demo of Conquest First Blood, their new Skirmish variant, coming up here pretty soon. And it's going to be on Tuesday. I'm doing it at a local game store. So I've got a bunch more minis I want to paint. I need to get, I think, at least 11 done. But I have a few extras here just to kind of fill out some unit options and things like that. I'm going to click on my light, which is going to make this camera absolutely unbearable. And we'll go down to the downward cam here, and we'll get to painting for the day. I don't know why, but man, I just feel like, I don't know, I needed a little shake up, and the First Blood stuff has really just kind of got my attention in all the right ways. So I hope that you are enjoying the content as well. I will be getting back to talking all about, all kinds of stuff with Age of Sigmar and all that kind of thing. Soon enough, I will. I just needed to pop out for a little bit. I'm sure everyone can understand needing a breather. And I'm just getting my chat to where I can see it, and I'll walk you through what I got going here. So, looking downward here, big stack in the left corner, but I have essentially two regiments that I'm trying to get painted. These are Huskarls. Camera's having trouble because they're black and white. But they are essentially the defensive Nord base infantry. And then the other regiment I'm trying to paint here are called Bearsarks. These are your heavy elite, not elite, they're actually a mainstay choice in the new book, which was interesting to me, but they're essentially your hard-hitting ones. If these are the shield, these guys are the sword, or the axe, more specifically. So anyway, let's see, we got a whole bunch of stuff here to paint along with them. So I think I just need 5 of one and 6 of the other. However, in First Blood, it also helps to kind of have specific, like, unit heroes and things kind of bespoke. So if I have a standard bearer, having an actual model with a standard and a leader and so on. So I think for my demo game, I don't have any of the unit upgrades per se, but that's okay. So let's just separate these into piles so we can start tackling them in groups like I do. And my plan is really simple. I want the Huskarls to be lots of browns, very dark earthen. My raiders are a lot of skin showing, obviously because I don't have any shirts on. So I just want their colors to keep kind of broken up a little bit. Whereas the Bearsarks, obviously are going to have a lot of bone color, lots of furs, but I think I want their tabards to be like a fun color. Kind of like a seafoam is what I have a lot of the other regiments in my army going as. So I might be doing that. Let's see, where is my chat box? If anyone wants to pick a topic, it could be from any kind of war game you'd like. It doesn't have to be Conquest by any means. I'm going to start by grabbing some simple contrast paints here. And a dark flesh tone. I don't particularly enjoy painting skin, but my one cheat method that I use that I have found is to put down a dark flesh layer and then use Guilliman flesh wash over it, and then you can just kind of dab it with some Cadian flesh tone, and it actually looks pretty good. So we're laying down base color, so that's going to be one of them for sure on both these units. We also need to grab a few other things. We got some browns. Forgive me, I could have grabbed this when I was still off camera, but I was getting all kinds of setup. Leather, Agros Dunes. What are you? My favorite contrast paint is Gorgrunta Fur. I love the kind of reddish finish it gives, but we can do that with other paints too, because I seem to be out of it. We'll go with dark and medium rust for some of those reddish kind of browns. Throw that there. Okay, let me grab a little mixing plate. And we're set. I'm just going to make a big pile of skin. And what's nice about doing this is the different contrast paints you can put over, what do they call this? Advanced flesh tone, so just darker, can make it different shades of skin. If you do a really light one, you can build up really light colors. If you put like a darker contrast, what would be a good example? I think I've had a good like if I thinned out some Cygor brown, you can make some dark skin tones. It's pretty cool. A lot of flexibility. Let's see. So right now, I got some music playing in the background. Hopefully you can hear it. I think I was going to do Lumineth Realm Lords as my next AOS faction review. However, I'm thinking of modifying that. I'll be honest. The Lumineth are not my favorite to talk about. Mainly whenever a faction is like too enmeshed with their hero, I'm like, well then really it's just their story and everybody else is just chilling, right? Kind of felt that way with Marathi a little bit. More so when when she had her whole ascension moment. All the stories just involving daughters just always wrapped around her. It happens. But I kind of like when a faction has enough of a oomph to stand on its own, you know? Something special about it. And we don't worry about being messy here. We're just blocking out colors. Just throwing down base things. Because it'll be much easier to come back and just kind of pick out the higher parts of that, you know, the flesh and, the armor and that kind of stuff. Things that are getting in the way now won't be later when we come back for them. Whilst I wait for any questions from you guys, I would love to chat with you if you wouldn't mind dropping something in. Just let me know you can hear me. But a few things kind of running over my mind is trying to decide, you know, this is a fantasy game. And what I like about fantasy settings and fantasy games is that you can have kind of crazier colors and that kind of thing. But I'm trying to decide if I want to keep the color scheme for these particular units a little bit more subdued. You know, like lots of just darks browns and furs, pelts, that kind of stuff that you'd see traditionally. Or do I give their capes a big pop of color? Like I said, I'm using Seafoam Green as the sort of default color for my Nords, because it makes them look better when they're all ranked up for playing Last Argument of Kings, the rank and flank iteration. But I kind of like the models all looking a little bit more different when I'm playing First Blood. And there's, you know, when it's supposed to be like 6 to 12 dudes, specific dudes. Let's see, we're just dabbing in color here. We'll come back and care about it later. Got kind of a little glove wrap thing on his arm here. And let's see, I don't actually have a standard bearer in this regiment in my 1K list, but I have a distinct feeling I'm going to get my face kicked in, and then I'm going to discover why standard bearers and leaders are great to have. That's how I see this thing going. Because that's always how it goes, right? I make a list to be very accessible, rules-wise, during demos, and then it all kind of clicks when it's on the table, and then you're like, now I get it. I get it now. So we're just future-proofing a little bit. We'll just throw them in the mix. It only adds 4 dudes anyway, right? To have the upgrades for all these things. Okay. First time catching you live. Well, it is wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for chiming in. It's always awkward talking to the void. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? As a first timer, you choose the subject, mon frere. I mean, anybody can, you know what I mean? But like, thanks for joining me. I wasn't necessarily having hard plans to do a live stream today, but I got pretty far ahead on content after coming out of the longest year of my life that we all called February. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is for you. It just, everyone in my family, we all just had a really rough month. Just stuff like, tires bursting and everything going on in the world. It was just like a lot. Everybody kind of had their feel bad for me story. We all threw a pity party for each other. We tried to make the most of it. It was just a long month. But coming out of that, I'm like, man, I haven't painted in so long. I just want to sit down and have nothing else going on. Coming out of it, getting a nice little hobby boost. My slump, and I'm just enjoying it, so... Robbie, I'm a huge fan of skirmish games. I am done with large army games. What games are these for? So these are somewhere in between what you just talked about. So there is a large army game called Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings by Parabellum. They make fantastic miniatures. They are a little bit of a higher scale than Warhammer. I find them much more rewarding and easy to paint. Their model quality is terrific. They can be good at a lot of different generic skirmish games. But like I said, they are a little bit bigger. I'm painting this specifically is Parabellum just released a skirmish variant of their army game where you only need, I think on the maximum high end, it could be like 30 dudes. And that's like a spam, that's your Tyranid force in 40k kind of a thing. Most of the time what I've seen is 15 to 20 models with that same system essentially. They made their own game format, like it has its own army builder and rules and stuff like that. It's all free, which is really great. Parabellum is cool if you're interested in skirmish games. I would love to put that on your radar. It's a good time to get into because the rules just dropped this week, so it's a good time for everyone to learn together. If you are interested in other games, I have a couple others I'm staring down the barrel of. One to look at is Bloody Hollow by Blaster Magazine. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble mixing color and thinking at the same time. I don't know why that was so difficult. But it is imagine Sleepy Hollow, the war game. So you're the townspeople trying to survive this horrible monster plundering and murdering everything. So it's a cooperative skirmish war game where, if you're the one who owns it, you would kind of take the GM-ish role and kind of just lead the way for monsters. But other than that, it has like everything supplied for you. I just started working on a script for how to play that one, and I'm very excited. The guy who runs Blaster Magazine, Gregory, the full name, is just a terrific human. And unfortunately, he reached out to me when I was having my depressive year called February, so I didn't get a chance to promote it when I should have, but I fully intend to, because my wife and I just rewatched Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. It's like, man, I forgot how impactful this movie was to my very weird sense of art and culture. I watched it again. I'm like, this is weird, dude. I love it. But I have a whole bunch of historical minis from the game Blood and Plunder, which, speaking of, if you're looking for a great skirmish game, Port Royal. That's a baller one. think about it as like, instead of Pirates of the Caribbean, it's Pirates of the Mordheim. Is this a game that has just samurai werewolves? Is this the game that just had samurai werewolves? Samurai werewolves. Not that I recall. It has samurai demons. Like their demon faction is based on Japanese art and depictions. Essentially, demons co-opted a religion on their way breaking out of hell. And it happened to be one of the Eastern traditions. And so there's that. I can't think of specifically werewolves that are samurais. I haven't thought of that one yet. But it definitely seems like a thing that they could have. No, Conquest is a wild setting. It kind of it comes out of writers from Greece. And one of the things that I noticed very early in kind of following their writing, and I did a few interviews with the company owner earlier back, was they don't put the same distinction between sci-fi and fantasy that we typically do in our book organizations. And by that I mean, when they say it's a fantasy game, it is fantasy in the sense of there is magic. These people are trapped at sort of a medieval-ish level of technology, with magic kind of built in. Kind of Arthurian is what the main human faction would remind you of. But there are also aliens. Like I said, they don't have the same distinctions we do. Essentially, a refugee alien survival fleet landed on this planet. So they're not militant. They don't have the greatest and best technology. They're just stuck. And how that's kind of affected the history of the setting is really cool. But it blends in all kinds of cool fantasy, I guess tropes is the word, but also just different types of storytelling. For example, these guys, the Nords, have almost the exact same mythology of Nordic cultures here. They have Odin and Loki and all these kinds of characters. They have their whole mythos. They were elevating heroes to Einherjar to fight in Ragnarok, but in actuality it was this alien race who was picking them up and using them as genetic test subjects, and then promptly ditched them back in the dirt, and they never got rose in time for this great battle they were being prepped for. So you can look at them and be like, oh yeah, they're Vikings. And you're like, well, these guys are, but when I bust out the troll models and the ogres and that are all like hiccups of this genetic whatever, it gets weird and I love it. I'm trying to think of other skirmish games that really stand out to me. I've been talking a lot about Marcher as well, but that one is more of an army game. It's more of a weird history, alt sci-fi kind of a setting. Conflict 47, I think, but more interesting. I like the way that they do hits and damage and stuff like that. But yeah, that's definitely more of an army game than what you're saying. Go get in there into the guts. No, I want to know what game has a giant werewolf. That also sounds like something that Infinity would have too, wouldn't it? Infinity has werewolves. I love it. Talk about blending concepts of sci-fi and fantasy, right? These are my Russian werewolves from space. But I'm trying. I'm working out of my little hobby funk. And I'm here because I can't do a thing about anything else going on in the world. But I can paint this little guy. I can have a battle report ready army by Tuesday. Speaking of, I did have a nice chat with the guys over at Parabellum. They're going to hook me up with some terrain so I can start doing battle reports. It's very difficult to find terrain that looks really, really good at this scale. They're putting out a set of like cardboard ones, and so I was like, can I just snag some of that for just quick battle report stuff? And they were really nice. But yeah, I tried kind of like setting a few things up to record one to like do like a how to play or whatever, and it just none of it looked right. I could do like shots with my existing fantasy terrain like in the background, like kind of filling up the edges of a shot, just so it doesn't look like they're standing out in the void, but it's not really good for much more than that. They can't stand next to it without it looking weird. Trying to remember what game it was. I have Port Royal. My list of games is fairly lengthy, but I grabbed the rules for Bloody Hollow. Yes. What's nice is you really don't need much more. Like when I did the Kickstarter, so like it was sent the game in advance, and I was like, oh my god, I love this. And because my wife and I had just watched Sleepy Hollow, and I was like, I need this thing. So then I went on and joined the Kickstarter, and I was surprised when you know, sometimes a game can like market itself as being really simple as far as like, all you need is a book, whatever. And I was like, no, this really literally is just a book. And then there's like a notepad where you can make custom characters for the night, just have villagers who can then die or whatever. I was like, it's a book and a post-it pad. And that's the game. And I'm like, oh, I love this. I love it. There's nothing worse than when it's like, oh yeah, you know, I mean, I try to be very upfront with people when it comes to Conquest of like, you know, the rules are all free, but they are on their website. You have to make an account, and there's like a free like list builder and stuff like that, which is different than saying you can play out of the box, right? So I try to be very honest about that. But Bloody Hollow is like literally a book and a notepad, and I was like, oh damn, this is minimalist, I guess is the kind of word I'm looking for. Like it's cool how much they did with so little in terms of like needing to buy extra junk. But if you remember, I'd love to know, because I'm into samurai werewolves. There's also, what's the other one? Black Site Studios has one with a Japanese theme as well. They might have a werewolf iteration. I can't remember what theirs is called. Okay, and here's Doug's secret to mass batch painting dudes. Get your dudes, knock out the skin, and then I'm going to take various browns and I'm just going to pick different parts all over them. And that's all we're doing. One guy's going to have brown pants, another guy's going to have brown boots, and so forth. And in that way, we keep it very simple. At this point, I'll probably separate the groups, though, because this one has a lot more bone color. So as we get, you know, deviate to different palettes and stuff like that, we'll separate the groups. Alright, brown pants. Let's give you a brown shirt. Let's see, we got... What other Skirmish games have been on my mind a lot lately? Anything by Vince Ventrella and Uncle Adam. Sorry, Tabletop Minions. I was trying to like, man, why can't I think of the channel name? But yeah, Snarling Badger Studios, anything they make is gold. And now we're getting the little bracers. If anyone has any topic ideas you'd like to discuss, please drop them in. In the meantime, I'm trying to think of as many skirmish level games as I can think of that I've enjoyed lately. The Space Station Zero event at Adepticon I did like maybe a year or two ago. I can't remember, man. Had to be 2 years ago. I don't remember doing it last year. Anyway, that was a blast. My favorite thing in the world was when the guy running it, because it wasn't Vince himself. It was just a fan who did it, and it was just a lot of fun. But he's like, if you're here for this, come over here. So all the players gather together on one side, and he said, raise your hand if you're here for a tournament. And nobody raised their hand, and he was like, good. Because it's such a beer and pretzels game. And it made my entire day when just, this is the experience we are having. If you have come for a different one, flee now. It's the nicest way to be like, it's gonna get dumb. I think that, and that was the same year I did the Wasteland Warfare Dust Up thing. I played Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which is getting a new edition here very soon, and I am so excited for it. Because it looks like they really reined in some ideas to make the game easier to actually play. Let me know, is it Robbie Ounce, if you've ever played Wasteland Warfare. I'm trying to get a local guy hooked on it as well, and it's not hard. The models are incredible, but he had just pointed out, like, there's a new edition, the starter set seems really interesting. It just always seems so unapproachable, which is absolutely the statement to make about it. But it's the price you pay when your rules designers want to enable you to do everything, and the cost of that is that it makes your rule book bloat. I have not played it, and it's Rob Younts. Oh, okay, well, thank you. I don't know if I've ever seen Younts as its own thing, so I appreciate that. No, it's quite... I mean, I like the game. It's quite a bit of fun. It's kind of like a... a good minigame touchstone people know often is Necromunda. And my description of Necromunda is always the same, which is... This rulebook is the densest thing ever, but it's falsely leading, meaning like in any given game you're not going to use all of these rules, right? You're going to use a couple, mostly just line of sight, moving, basic shooting, but when you get into like the minutia, there are rules for things like how harpoons work, and it's like not everyone's going to have a harpoon, bro. And so it's that kind of stuff where the rules exist to articulate something, but just by articulating a thing that no one does very often, you bloat the book. And you multiply that by nukes going off, weapons having scorch effects, freeze effects, broken limbs, using VATs, like all those things you wanted to do too much, or at least allow too much to be done. And all of a sudden the game becomes very unapproachable because people look at that rulebook. Again, we know as players that you're maybe going to use 25% of it, and it goes very quickly if you just stick to simple things. But it doesn't feel that way, and I totally get it. Kamon, have you heard of Trench Crusade? Yes, I'm on their servers. I chill out. I really like the gameplay. The aesthetics are... I'm a little over grimdark, if I'm honest with you. I can handle some of it when it comes to like 40k because it's already an IP that I have well established, and there are different kinds of grimdark in 40k in my opinion. But I just tapped out. I was just like, this is unrelenting darkness. And That's kind of why I gravitated towards games like Marcher, because it's a war game, but it's also a brighter one. Everything from the color tones to the subject matter being more optimistic. It just got to be a bit much. Like I had said earlier, February was the longest year of my life, so I was kind of in a funk, and I'm just like, have not been looking at anything gloomy because I got to get it together. Like, I got to keep making content, bro. Which really is always one thing that drew me to War Machine, is like the color palettes, the everything, even like the somewhat intentional cartooniness of the bad guys. I'm like, none of it feels oppressively dark. So I get it. I mean, I've watched a lot of demos of it, and gameplay, it seems really cool. I like the simplicity and approachability of it. I think that's definitely where it shines. And the setting is, it's a cool concept. Hell opened up during the Crusades. I'm like, well, who's to say it didn't? Let's see. Hey, finally able to watch the stream. How you been? I am hanging in there. Hanging in there. This month is turning out much better than the last one. And we're just kicking through. If you want something fun, play Moonstone. Now, I have never played Moonstone, but I am absolutely enthralled by their miniatures. It's I know you roll a bunch of dice and then drop them on the table, and like those are your objectives. That's kind of the way that it's been pitched to me. And so it's like the Moonstone is falling from the sky. Everybody scatter and go get it. Is that a simple synopsis? I miss Hordes. Circle Ouroboros was so cool. Yeah. Actually, a local store owner was like, hey, does anybody want to play War Machine locally? I think he was asking if we wanted to stock it. And I mean, I said I would play it, but I don't know how much support he got from others. I think this area used to have a big War Machine and Hordes group, and it kind of got burnt out when Privateer Press launched a third. I almost forgot the name of that company, man. Man, that was like the center of my universe for years. I think my favorite faction... Oh, right now I have a box of pigs. The Pharaoh from War Machine. And they just brought those back as an army. So, like, I'm sitting there with them. Like, I'm not going to get rid of them because, you know, who knows? If they're an official army again. We will see. It's one that I would not mind playing again whatsoever. I have so many good memories of War Machine and Hordes. It was my first war game. And the first time I realized I prefer playing against painted minis. But it did help me become a great painter because I was in college and I was broke as all get out. And in order to fund my first army ever, I bought one box of starter set and I painted it up as best I could. And then someone at the store was like, I hate painting. Will you paint mine? And then I just pointed at a box of the models on the shelf and I said, if you buy that and you hold on to it, I'll paint your models and then we'll just trade. And that's exactly what I did. Put together an entire Signar Lightning Cadre army based on that. My first army was Signar. And then I jumped to... Why can't I remember their name? Legions of Scorn. No. Scorn. It was the beast ones and they had the big elephants. All I can remember is the word Scorn. Because there was Legions of Everblight, and that's a different thing. Horde was amazing. Those minis are amazing. Yes. I know, and they just work so good for everything. I tried around with a few of them, and one of the things I loved about War Machine and Hordes is that the types of play were so different. And I had a wandering eye for minis, and so what would normally happen was I would get into a faction and then realize, oh, I actually don't play games like this, and then trade them off and try something else. I did that with Circle. I was like, I do not have the brain capacity to think about model placement with this much aptitude. I can't do it after 1 beer. I'm not going to do it after 30. Steamforged fused the games together. It's just called War Machine and Horn now. Yeah. Yes, I did know that. I make the distinction because not all of the formerly Hordes factions are represented. And I was trying to think of the name of Scorn. Yes, thank you. They also had the most badass looking druids of any model collection that's ever made druids, right? All those stone shapers and stuff like that from the Circle army were just so cool. I never got to play, but Signar, Orboros, and Khador are my favorite. You know, it didn't occur to me what aesthetic really drew me into the game until I was playing a different video game this week. It's funny that War Machine came up. I was playing, oh my gosh, what's it called? Phoenix Rising. It's like a Breath of the Wild for Xbox kind of a thing, but it uses Greek mythology. And one of the armors you can unlock, and it's just for aesthetics, it's a knight armor, and then there's like a little steam engine on the back. And I remember that when I saw that, I was like, that is why I fell in love with War Machine and Hordes. Steampunk. The dude's got a steam engine strapped to his back, and he's out here shooting lightning at people. I was just like, the good old days. Scorn and Orboros got killed off. Yeah, well, you know, yeah, you lay low the forests and you get rid of the elephants. Rumors are they're coming back. I'm sure. Well, that's the thing. They may not be supporting every single model that was put out before. One of the problems that Privateer articulated towards the end was that they had literally too many products to support. No store could hold them. Too many SKUs and stuff like that. And so I understand trying to reprieve stuff, but they also paid for all of those intellectual property. So it's like, god dang, all right, they're going to try to make money off of that. You'd be a fool. You can still play Legacy. Oh, yes, you can. You can. But it would require getting someone around me to want to play it, and then also having to explain all of that. And that sounds very daunting for someone who doesn't already play it themselves. You know what I mean? Okay, here's some rich mahogany. Actually, we'll go with the dark golden brown. We'll do that. Who doesn't like having a best buddy that eats a literal ton of coal? Absolutely. Rob, it was Kings of War 4th edition who had the samurai and Mongolian werewolves. Thank you for going out and finding that. I was very curious. Give me a second, just mixing some brown off camera. Tried to play the original tabletop RPG back in the day, and my ADHD was not ready for that. Oh, the what do they call Iron Kingdoms? I had thought every once in a while of covering War Machine on the channel. Certainly when Steamforged took over. I reached out to them if they wanted, support or whatever. I was like, really, all I just need is digital copies of some of this reference material. And I never heard back from them. That's just fine. We're all busy. Yeah, I was such a fanboy for Privateer back in the day, man. That game was so formative to my life now that I think about it. I'm really letting it register. Everything from the game, the community, like I met podcasters in real life. That was some of the worst experiences ever. And it set me on a course to be like, I don't want to be like that. I was living here in Iowa, going to college and playing Privateer Press games. And my wife got a job at a college out in Seattle. I was like, oh my god, are you kidding me? Are we going to move to the mecca of my favorite game company? And then I got there, and it was the mecca. But, not a single painted army in sight. Some guy tried to play a game with me, and none of his models had arms because he didn't want to commit to something. And I was like, well, is this a playtest, like for an event it's coming up or something? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, that's not fun. I'm trying to get the benefit of the doubt. It's like, oh, you just decided to stop here. Okay. Schrodinger's War Machine, I guess. I love the lore, but every time I got an army book, it felt like the lore jumped so far between editions. It kind of did. It felt like some of those early books, they maybe had success, didn't know what to do with it, and so they're like, okay. We're going to Evil Dead 2 this and basically do the same story, but a little bit different. And then the next book would come out, and you're like, well, you shouldn't have to do that multiple times. You don't have to change everything all the time. What happened? Well, what happened to Privateer Press? My understanding, and this is, please don't take this as fact. This is my understanding as observing the company kind of fall. I played during second edition, which was really the high watermark of that game. They were having international tournaments go on regularly. It was a big deal. And a few things happened to create a soup. One, the barrier to get into the game became too great. Meaning, if you were in the game and you knew how to do the synergies of like how to make these models work together, you would be virtually unstoppable to a new player. So a new player had to learn all those things before they could competently do okay in an event. So it's just like the amount of knowledge you needed to not get immediately assassinated off the table when you're playing against some factions, like my Scorn, who do assassinations very well, was very high, right? It would take you a long time to onboard new players. You had to keep their interest. You combine that with the accessibility of models. It was very difficult for any store to keep up with all of the product because of the way that they decided to ship things. Originally, they would sell units in groups of like, say for example, a unit could be taken in groups of 2 or 5. Well, they would have 2 different boxes rather than just one box of 5 dudes that you can take 2 of in a game if you wanted. they had 2 SKUs for everything, and then they started making unit attachments for that group, and the number of things that a store would have to have on their shelves became too great. So did the number of individual products they're being taxed on, they're trying to ship. I know that that was the CEO citing that as an issue. On a soft end, they weren't rewarding hobby stuff enough, in my opinion, and so when you just have the competitive ed, it's kind of the tail wagging the dog, which is why I don't mind whenever Games Workshop completely ignores competitive scene rules. They can house rule it if they want. I don't care, because if that's all you listen to, then your game of miniature warfare, it loses the art aspect. It's not celebrated, so why would anyone be drawn to it? Which is something that Steamforge has done an immense amount to change. They're doing a lot of hobby focus. Their tables at Adepticon, since they've gotten the IP, have been stellar. So, like, they get it. So yeah, high barrier to entry. And they just started making misplays, as far as like misplays being how they run events, how they coordinate things. They used to have a representative program, and then they had to get rid of that, and that had a whole bunch of fallout. If I'm not mistaken, somebody was abusing it, and it kind of ruined it for everybody, which is a real bummer. What else? I'm trying to think of what else happened. To combat all of this, at the same time all of that was happening, second edition was becoming stale because the game is so highly competitive. People, over time, figure out what is the best thing, mathematically. And so it got to a point where you'd keep seeing the same lists. Morvana 2, with all of her goats and stuff, was a popular one. Double Stormwall Haley, so one woman who can change time and 2 giant mechs walking next to her. It just kind of all became the same, and so you get players who drift away. Their answer was to super rush development of their next edition, edition 3. And that launch was kind of the nail in the coffin, in my opinion, because they launched it too soon. It wasn't fully play tested. Products couldn't reach the store in time. Like we're in Seattle. We're in the home of War Machine land, and our stores can't sell War Machine. Like, this is a joke. Because they tried to launch too hard before they had the products ready and all of that. That is my understanding. If anybody else has any else to add to this wayward drama, please. Or if I got something wrong, please correct me. This is all... The CEO said a little bit, specifically regarding SKUs, and then a lot of it is just lived experience being up in Seattle when all this went down. I'm thinking of giving them all black capes. Like, this side will be black, and then it can have different kinds of fur line the inside. Trying to decide. So it just got mismanaged. Because it takes a lot of skills to run a company and make a game. And you know what? They don't always overlap. So if you don't get the guy who's really good at marketing somewhere on your payroll, or the guy or gal who's really, really good at getting new players in, or whatever it might be, do that thing. What's your all-time favorite Warhammer faction across all games? Truthfully, in terms of their beliefs and the way that those beliefs manifest, it is the Khador gang from Necromunda. It is dirt people who are hyper-religious and take themselves way too seriously. while they live in absolute filth and plunder, there has always just been something so comedically dark about them. The fact that their weapons are essentially aping Custodes things. I have just always found that to be an absolute hysterical faction. Very self-referential with how hoity-toity things in the Imperium are supposed to appear. If I'm going with like more of an army rather than... a gang is not quite an army, but you know what I mean. I'm going to go... That's a tough one, man. Space Wolves really got me into the game, but I wouldn't... They're far from the thing I like the most. Like, one of my first exposures to Warhammer was like the old, you call it compendium? Omnibus of Space Wolves books at Barnes & Noble. That's the random esoteric answer I'd expect from a lore person. They're wild, I'm just saying. Never rule out the trash pandas. They'll come for you. Yes, they are a fave. What else? I have really enjoyed, there hasn't been a ton of it, but what we do have, I've enjoyed kind of the direction they took with Chaos Dwarves, Hellsmiths of Hashut. Just as a way to, you know, both bring them back, but make them new and unique within the setting. I think it was a big challenge, and I think they did really well. I'm doing right now is just tracing the outline of the fur on these jackets, or the cloaks rather. I'm going to go back and fill in the center. Man, I need this lo-fi zombie track. Yes, in case anyone's curious, I have a lo-fi playlist I put on every single time I do one of these, and it is 90s grunge but lo-fi. Catch the fever. People call me a shill for GW, but I don't recommend, you know, Warhammer to random strangers on the street, only if they show an interest in wargaming, but I will let everybody know about 90s grunge but lo-fi. But yes, I have to say that's probably my favorite army Cawdor for sure. As far as like big armies, if I'm going 40k, it's got to be AdMech. Even though I don't play them. I found their rules to be a little bit overwhelming. But I've, you know, aesthetically and as terms of like this idea of a religious faction based on the fact that they just don't understand the technology is very interesting to me. Kind of hits a note of like I Am Legend or Canticles of Leibowitz or something like that. Some of those other like big science fiction works where mankind has just been knocked a peg down its own evolutionary cycle, and we just never quite get our way back to our former greatness. So I think that's a great sci-fi, theme to play on. And what's cool about the AdMech is that they're positioned in such a way in the lore is to have access to all the same drama that everybody else does. So for example, like in Horus Heresy, they had their own civil war, like it affected them as well. They were also characters in that, which I like. Their own story, but they connect it, Did you think Conquest will have too many factions? It hurts to see mainline GW games get so many, they can't seem to balance or give attention to them all. Do I think Conquest will have too many factions? To me, the only limit to a faction existing is, can they be unique? Like, before AdMech came out, there was a lot of people like, why should we have AdMech? Guard basically do the same thing, right? They're cheaper, disposable warriors. The army has to do something fundamentally different, and they did with AdMech, just to kind of put a top on that. But that's where I first heard this discussion. And so, like, as long as they can keep doing that, I'm cool with it. The last few armies they've had play radically different. Euroni play their own game so much to the point where I don't want to use them as a demo force because they are doing their own thing with command cards and stuff like that. But that is unique, and it's great, even if it only appeals to people who already play the game. It has a reason to exist. With some of the factions they've talked about, like, for example, bringing a faction in, I believe there's one that is very reminiscent of Chinese history, like their historical armies, and another that's like Dogs of War. Again, as long as they can keep delivering some unique proposition for those factions, I'm here for it. Because I don't know. I can't think of like any misses, like in terms of a faction, right? They all have a different conceit. Probably the older factions are more, I don't think they're boring, but more boring relative. For example, like Nords, Dweghom, and 100 Kingdoms play a very similar game. They have different tools, but they're not vastly different in terms of they all run command cards, they all have unit choices, volley options. They're not changing fundamental game states. Like Euroni can, Spires can manipulate the command deck, Euroni can activate anybody. I don't know, it's just, there's a whole bunch of stuff from like, the OG factions didn't explore nearly as much as the newer ones have, and so as long as they keep exploring new things, I am supportive. I agree, AdMech writing is so freaking good in this universe. The paradox of religious machine cult, they're written so well in the Rogue Trader video game. Oh, okay. It's right. I did play that. For some reason, my mind went to their old Rogue Trader, like, old edition of the game. But yes, you are absolutely correct. There was a bunch of AdMech in that. I loved the AdMech. I can't remember. Is it Pascal? I thought it was something with a P. He was my favorite because I would just give him the biggest screw-off melt-a-weapon and then all the defensive bonuses, and he would just walk up and boom. I want that pirate ship from the dogs they showed, plus I'm a sucker for a mercenary faction. Yeah, that's my thing too. I love a mercenary faction. I know there were some Q&As on the Discord about it, and that there's a lot of hesitation regarding it because of that exact reason of now we have to balance all these things in the context of a different army. And I get that. I'm also just one of those people who's like, well, the Dogs of War armies can exist for non-competitive play. Like, I can just bring a whole bunch of nerds, right? So even if you just do that, I mean, I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with it. If it's a Dogs of War army, I don't know how many models you were hoping to sell anyway, so just making it a fun choice for players doesn't seem like you're losing much, but that might not be accurate if they wanted to have support. Yeah, Pascal. Yeah. Deleter of enemies, exactly, yes. I remember having that point in the story where it's like somebody said something disparaging about having an AdMech guy with you. I can't remember what part of the story it was. And I just had this visceral like, excuse me, he's my MVP. You do not diss Pascal. The only playthrough I didn't care for was the one where I befriended the Eldar. The Lady Eldar who tried to kill you and sell you multiple times. It was like, no, we're not having this madness. Yeah, they still think they have a couple of. You know, I'd love to see one where an army is really centered around the word or the use of, like, I can't remember, is it lethal? When you explode when you die. I would just love to see armies that are like built around these corner case mechanics that turn them into a full thing of like, this is why you should be scared of this dude. Lethal demise, that's what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, are there too many at this moment? I would say no, because the most recent ones have all been bangers. Do I think they could reach that point? Yeah. As long as they're not all unique. I think that point will be hit fairly quick. But, they haven't shown signs of slowing down with that yet. Oh, I also have the smart search for other music on, so every once in a while if it pops into a song that's not from the 90s, forgive me and I will go change it. One time I was doing a live stream and it turned into so I had like the smart search thing on, so it's looking for other songs that are kind of like my 90s lo-fi, which I generally like, until it got stuck into a rhythm of lo-fi Disney, and for some reason it just kept playing This Is Halloween like every other song, but they were different iterations, they were different lo-fi versions. But the first one I was like, oh, this is fun. We'll walk down memory lane. This is Halloween. And then by the second time, I was like, I am going to kill somebody at Spotify. I was like, wow, I didn't realize A, how deeply programmed that song was, but also B, how quickly I would get tired of it. Can't imagine you parents out there listening to musicals at the same time 5,000 times in a row with your kids. made some good progress. I should definitely be able to have these guys all done by Tuesday is the game day here. I think they said locally we have a Euroni player and a Sorcerer King player who's mostly focused on the fire elements, so the Ifrits and stuff like that, which I like. And then I have Euroni that I don't bust out too much. And then my Nords. Yeah, I'll come back around. Their belt buckles have it too, but it's such a sharp detail that I need to get a smaller brush, so I'm just going to go back and forth with these guys first. Knock out the weapons and the shields with the bigger brush. As far as other things going on in my world, we have been obsessed in my house with true crime. Learned about the Murdaugh murders. What else? Yeah, been taking care of family. Like I said, February. It seems to be that way for a lot of my friends too, but it seems like February was a pretty rough month for a lot of us. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. So I've just been spending a lot of time with my mom. Okay. Does anybody else have any topics for us? Things you'd like to discuss? New releases you're excited about, or games you're curious about? I'm excited for the expected changes to Fallout Wasteland Warfare. They kind of hinted at a few of them. I'm not a big fan of previews. GW does this too. There's no company that I know who doesn't. It feels good to have content, you know, to say you're out talking about your new game, but if you don't give any details, it's just really not helpful. I feel the same way whenever GW launches a new edition of the game and they have those like faction articles and people get all up in arms about stuff and changes, and like, you see 1/8 of what's happening, brother. Like, just calm down. You got to take it as a whole. And they kind of did that a little bit with the Wasteland Warfare 2nd edition teasers. They answered some questions, but then, like for other things, you know, they got rid of a few mechanics that I said kind of contributed to bloat, which is cool, but never talked about like, okay, well, is that going to be represented somewhere else? Like, you know, what is the mechanism for doing XYZ then? It's like, oh yeah, we got rid of these things you didn't like. Well, yeah, but like, we didn't hate what they were trying to represent. What'd you replace them with? We'll never tell. Do you have a big scene for Conquest in the Seattle area? So I actually don't live out there anymore. To my understanding, there actually is quite a large scene out there. And it's going really, really well. My wife and I moved back to Iowa almost 3 years ago now. And no, oh my God, it's closer to 5. Jeez. And just to be closer to family and stuff. Here, the shorter answer is no, but I'm painting these models up to do the first kind of local demo. So it's also sort of a, here's hoping. I know there's at least 2 guys, so it's just kind of a game day with some people who already play Conquest. The 2 of them that are already here already bought in, so that makes it easier. It's more just organizing a game. But hopefully I can coerce a store to start supporting us. I got some people interested in a demo. I'm going to take a picture. Hopefully when there's like 4 or 5 of us standing around a table, I can be like, look, humans with money. Support the game you will. Gotta do the heavy lifting of building the Conquest scene yourself. Yeah, basically. Now what's nice is that I'm not alone in the general region. Like, so maybe like an hour and a half east of me is a rather large good group. There's a whole group from Iowa, eastern Iowa, that gets together and they do the Conquest event every year. Have a great time. So with so many factions getting 1 new model and a book, what army are you hoping gets a full release or model refresh? I assume you're talking about for AOS, because they do the 1 hero in a book, or 1 hero in a battle tome release structure. So as far as like what army I want to get a full support next, assuming it's an existing one, right? We're not going to make up something new. I'm going to go... I might actually go Maw Tribes, to be perfectly honest. I think they can, if the battle tome is written interestingly, represent a very unique part of the realms. Where it's not about conquest. It's about survival, but it's survival magnified in a way that other fantasy settings can't do. So I like them quite a bit. I wish the range was more visually interesting, but the fact that everything is scrap and cobbled together and all that, it just has a great aesthetic. I mean, and since I've learned a little bit more about, I've been learning a little about 40k because I got a Chaos Space Marine army in a trade. But people love Custodes because it's like 12 guys. I was like, well, Stormcast are thematically supposed to be the Custodes type, but they're not on the table. They're not that elite. And I think Maw Tribes could certainly fill that void of like this hyper elite, hyper specialist, not many dudes on the table, but each one of them has an immense amount of impact. Make them very hard to kill, very hard to hurt, but they suffer in the scenario playing game or something like that. But I would say lean into the scrapyard look because it is their jam. Nobody else looks as good at looking like trash. Maybe they could get the Cawdor guys I was talking about earlier to help them out. I don't know. But I have always adored the way those catapults just look like absolute trash heaps. But I think it's a good time to do Maw Tribes simply because think of how much they've expanded the visual aesthetics of other armies now, right? With AOS unique things. So for example, I can't remember the name of the unit, but the ogres who are carrying cannons, those are old world cannons, right? But what if you had a new unit of those and some of them were wielding Carrigan Overlord guns? Or some of them had, Hellsmiths of Hashut things because they made a good trade deal or something. I guess what I'm saying is, like, enough factions and enough technological progress has been introduced with new, unique visual ideas that redoing those same concepts but AOSified would make them way cooler. Now you're not just shooting cannons. Now you're shooting ethermatic, blargdy blargs that are supposed to be the cream of the crop of weapons, but you shoved a femur in there because that's all the only weapon ammo you had or something like that. Can get behind Maw tribes. Yeah, it's ancient. Straight up. It looks ancient. But I think that they are a faction that has just a lot of appeal. People like big stompies, but I would choose them as a big stompy faction over Sons of Behemoth any day, because Sons of Behemoth has to, by nature, play a very specific kind of game. And they're always the army, I feel, that tends to feel the most left out after new objectives and stuff like that come out, because they're just such a hard thing to balance into overall game system. They're just so different. Not that they're hard, but they're just different in terms of what does it mean to capture an objective and what that means when they design these missions. So I like them as a chunky replacement, right? They're heavy, but they're also not so heavy that they can't be multiple places. And when they want to, they can get on top of a mammoth and hit like a gargant, which is always a neat trick. Oh, I missed your legs. Let's knock these guys out real fast. I kit bashed mine to carry AOS weapons, all the extra bits from my KO. Hey, look at that, we're in simpatico, I like that. But yeah, so there's just a lot of those things where it's like, if you just AOSified it, cool idea, good kid going the wrong way. You got to just kind of give them a better direction. Okay, last one for the metal on these guys. But I like that idea. The kit bash sounds fun. A middle ground between normal armies and gargants. Agreed. And that's kind of how I view it too. Because I still feel like a Maw Tribes player can look at the mission, and they're looking at it the same way that the other player is. You know what I mean? In terms of, like, the Sons of Behemoth player looks at a mission and goes, where do I have to commit 33% of my entire army by having Jim walk to the left? As opposed to some nuance of, I can have these guys go here, I can have these guys sit in the middle and support, I have these guys that are mounted, they're not terribly fast, but they can go support XYZ on the flank if they need to. Where's Jim going? Oh, I'm Big Deborah instead of Little Debbie. That's your Gargant army player. Where do you want the keg? Sweet. Metal's mostly done. that's right. I was going to do the little belt things on them too. 1 sec. Let me sit up straight here. Okay. Yes, I know locally enthusiasm didn't die out, not by any stretch. People are still buying armies and painting them up and stuff like that, but I think people are just really excited for the next GHB. For some reason, this one just didn't seem to land with a lot of folks. We played it for a while, and then we're just like, hey, let's do 40k. Actually, lately it's been Blood Bowl. Everyone's been super into Blood Bowl. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work with my schedule most of the time. But I love it conceptually. I love that I had to learn Blood Bowl, a game by British people, to understand how American football works, because my mother spent so many years trying to teach me football and just failed so many ways. She was like Edison making a light bulb. And, no, but, you know, it took a stalwart boomer like Jervis Johnson from the UK to teach me, an American, how to play football. Not enough armies have had rules this past year. I had a great time at the last Super Bowl just telling my mom, oh yeah, I learned this in Blood Bowl. Now, does he get hurt does he get in trouble if he kicks the other guy on the ground? Oh, he does. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's not good. You don't want to do that then. I would have done that in my play. She was not enjoying it. How about this? She didn't think I was nearly as clever as I thought I was. You know, it's tough. The question was asked earlier, and I'm thinking about it now. Can you have too many armies to support? And this comment here by Come On actually just kind of gave me a new answer, which was only as many as you can support. And because Parabellum doesn't do fully printed books for everything and wait for that, they can release PDFs very quickly. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, I feel like the games 40k and AOS do have too many armies, because when a new edition launches, it takes far too long to support all of them with their current business plan. How about that? That's where those realpolitik isn't quite the same thing, but, like, you know, in the reality, the functioning of how the business works, I'm willing to say that they have too many because it's just too difficult to support them. They need a living rule set. Oh, GW. That's going to be difficult to pitch to market or shareholders who really love that every 3-year bump. Another edition made, another swath of trees killed. Love the smell of making models in the morning as they huff their own plastic. Yeah, getting a battle tome like 2 months before it gets made obsolete again sucks. Yes, I had that when I was playing Flesh Eater Courts. That's what it was. I had just bought the battle tome. It was a brand new one, and it was one of the last armies of that edition. You're just like, really? Yeah, but now you have it forever in case anybody wants to play this edition. This edition was not memorable enough for anyone to want to do that. This does not spark joy. Just trust the Space Wolves. Yeah, that's when you gotta start playing the GW metagame. You gotta have a Space Marine army because you know that they're always gonna be the first one with new rules. I mean, don't get an army just for that reason, but it becomes the metagame of like, well, I don't know who's going to get hosed with the last book of this edition, but I do know who will be burdened with the first book of the new edition, Space Marines, who will be made obsolete very quickly because once the writers figure out how to write good rules in this edition, they will be rolled over. And it's just in time for Grotmus to get us all new detachments and it starts all over again. Laughs in GW maniacally. I will say the Space Wolves are a chapter / legion that I didn't see the appeal of in 40k, but I really fell in love with them when I was reading the Horus Heresy stuff, or I am reading the Horus Heresy stuff. Mainly, I think it's because of Russ. Like, you know, the current Space Wolves, circa this millennium that we're playing in 40k, they revere him and they talk about him as this mythic figure, but I didn't feel like after finishing that omnibus forever ago that I understood this character, whomst they called Russ, in any real way. And so I started reading about him more, and just every one of his appearances when he steals the scene, he like sucks the oxygen out of the room whenever he's in it. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is... You could write 3 or 4 sagas about this guy. He's cool. And it just took me understanding Russ to understand the Space Wolves a bit more. Same kind of thing with World Eaters. I had to understand Angron. Betrayer is one of the best books ever. And one of the few that ever made me stop and Google how much it would actually cost to start a new army. I think for these last 4, I'm going to give them a dark brown coat. Can't wait for new ogres, though. Yes, I would love to see them. Trying to think of other factions that I would love to see get an immediate... refreshing with. I mean, Fire Slayers would be a great candidate. I think they need not a range refresh and as in retiring old kits, but they need a range refresh level of new kits to be added. No subtractions, except maybe if you want to clear out, you know, if they want an excuse to clear out like a Warcry Warband or something like that, but the whole theme of the thing should be expansion. GW has such a great IP, but every time I think about getting into it, their management does something to remind me why I haven't. Orcs do keep tempting me though, and they always will, but may I suggest to you, check out Parabellum Games. They have an army called Wadroon, which is orcs on dinosaurs. And if that sales pitch does not appeal to you, the internet has nothing for you, friend. But yes, I think about a line that was said. It was said regarding the British in World War One. Not that has anything to do with them as a people, but regarding the army, it was like, man, they fight like lions. And someone else is supposed to have said, well, good for us, they're led by donkeys. And I think about that quote all the time when I think about GW decisions, like when they got rid of online sales in North America, that kind of stuff, where you're like, bro, are you like smoking weed with Prince and he's just convincing you the internet's a fad? Like, what are you talking about? What in the name of geriatric bad decisions are you guys doing over there? Sometimes they mellow out, though. You know, like when they got the Warhammer community page, that was a big step forward of just coming out of the ivory tower. You already got me into Conquest, but I've liked the Mad Max 40k orcs. Oh, yeah. I'm a codex collector, so I don't have this problem. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's cool. I love it. Okay, here we go. Looking good. I got one more step before everything needs to just sit and dry before a wash. Oh, 2 more steps. Okay, so we gotta grab... Where's it at? Boom. Yes, I love it if... I love knowing that there's people out there just collecting codexes. That makes me happy. Because there's so much work that goes into them, and I would hate for it to just be a fart in the wind. I'd be so screwed if I actually got models. I had like a quarter of every army. Ah. That's why you gotta try First Blood. You only need a quarter. And I've got a little bit of this color here. So this is sort of like a sandstone type thing. And I love picking out like little straps and stuff with it. And you can go over them with contrast paint if you want to make them different colors. Or if you just put a wash on them, it'll just fill in the recesses and it'll look like this kind of rope. And it always looked great. I have 2,000 of all but 2 AOS armies. Oh, wait, which ones have you ignored? If you went that far into a collection, who didn't make the cut? You sound like me listing off armies that I painted and then traded away, which is most of them. First Blood rules are looking pretty sweet. Yes, I made a few minor errors in my rules video, but nothing that changes the impact of the game. and I have been very interested in it. I like the way the scenarios are generated with you and your opponent. It seems like a more interesting way to do the Warcry style of mission territories twist. I admit there's only 600. And I have no Hedonites. Fair enough. I don't think... I'm trying to think of... I painted a couple Hedonites. I don't know if I've ever had a whole army of them. No, I can't remember. My question: how'd you keep your wife after spending that much money on models? Let's see here. I don't know, I could have gotten it like me and just painted for it. I'm a sucker for that. Or if it's a screaming deal, I'm like, man, I don't need this, but you know, even if I resell it, I can make a good deal on this. All right, let me grab my seafoam or my greenish color that I'm using. See, I'm looking around. Some of these guys on their shields have little ropes, tabards. So I was going to put a little paint on them. And his back. Budgeting, and I work at the game store, so I get it cheaper than most normal. There you go. Get high on your own supply. That's what he understands. My wife and I recently watched the South Park where Walmart opens up in the town and Randy quits his job as a geologist to go work at Walmart just for the savings. Like, that's absolutely my game plan. My local game store just recently started doing a consignment shelf, which I was very excited about. And basically people can bring in used models, and if they sell, they just get turned into store credit. And that has been very big for me. I like that. It's helped me get paints more than anything else. I would have the last 2 armies, but now I'm 5 armies deep into 40k and 3 into Conquest. Yes! What Conquest ones do you have? I have a full collection of Nords, mostly the infantry stuff. I actually don't have any of the fun monsters, which is a shame. But I also have 1,000 points of Euroni, and I'm going to be getting into Weaver Courts here very, very soon, so I can convince my wife to play. Because that'll always go well. All right. Oh, you know what? I got one more color I want to put on, and then I will hop off. I'm going to throw some copper. And I'm going to hop off here in the last minute or so, or in the next minute or so. So if you have any last questions for the day, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. My wife and I are going to go have a wonderful lunch, and then I'm going to go work on some scripts for the next episodes. Coming up this week, I have a lot more content regarding Fallout, oh my god, Conquest First Blood. It's kind of my jam right now. It's really helping me get out of my funk. I don't know why. I do have some more content for AOS coming. Talk about Lumineth and Carriage Overlords in the 4th edition. Yeah, so look forward to those things. I just needed a little palate cleanser. I think we can all understand that. And sometimes you just gotta follow the passion, right? Passion's here. Let's do it. Nords, Hunter Kingdoms, Sorcerer Kings, and soon Wadroon. Nice. Sorcerer Kings is probably one of the more interesting ones in my opinion. I love the way that they look on the table, the way everything just kind of functions together. Anyway, friends, thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a wonderful time, got some hobby done yourself. Next for these guys, I'm going to wait for the paint to dry, give them all a wash, and then go back over and just pick out some higher quality details. Do the beards and stuff like that, the skin, the stuff that really makes them pop. And then crack into the Bear Sarks, who are next on the table. They'll probably go even quicker because there's no shields and junk. It's just a lot of bone. But yeah. Anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out with me, and I will catch you next time. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and happy wargaming.